Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coaches Corner. I am Cal Coach and Program Director Melissa, and this week I'm honored to welcome retired U.S. Army veteran Melvin Gatewood to the show. Melvin is a certified peer support specialist with the Department of Veterans Affairs, a Cal veteran athlete, and so very much more. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coaches Corner. Melvin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have you on and talk with you today, Melvin. Let's jump right in. Would you start today, Melvin, by talking to us a little bit about your life growing up and what would ultimately drive you to join the Mississippi Army National Guard?
Well, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, but raised in Columbus, Mississippi. After 9/11, I still remember the day I was actually in science class when the television came on, and that was back in the day. I'll age myself to say when the TV was in the corner of the classroom and it came on, and just started seeing those planes go into the buildings, and they were just like, oh, so real. I'm like, I really didn't understand what was going on, but then afterwards, just finding out what happened, and it kind of just it just did something to me. I had a lot of military personnel that served in my family. Uncle that did was a career Air Force. Uncle that was career Army, and a lot of cousins. And from that point on, I kind of knew that I wanted to serve our nation and kind of pretty much like bring the fight to them. So after we're actually during high school, when I was a junior in high school, I actually enlisted into the Mississippi National Guard, and I actually went out for basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, after graduating.
Talk to us a bit about your experiences at Fort Sill. What do you remember most, Melvin, about training up as a young soldier?
Well, I in the area that I in Columbus, we had field artillery. It was a National Guard unit, so when the recruiter came and talked to me, he kind of sold myself and my mom on, well, if he ever had any type of conflict, he would be miles away from what was going on. So after he said that, that kind of sold us on it. And my brother had already enlisted 2 years before me, but he had a
Okay.
different job. He was in field artillery as well, but he was more so like a forward observer, and I was pretty much a cannon crew member. So when we went out to Fort Sill, just learning everything along the lines of field artillery, and then of course before that, just basic training on how to be a soldier, and actually ended up meeting another individual who was from West Point, Mississippi, and me and him we continue to be friends, good friends to this day. So a lot of time when you go to basic training or places like that, you try, hey, where you from? You from Mississippi? Oh, okay, and and just end up having a connection with people like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us can really attest to that. Some of our best friends, right, came out of that time, those times of basic training and advanced training, through those early kind of connections of just where are you from, right?
Yes.
So, Melvin, how long would it be from, when you went through basic training, advanced individual training before you would actually deploy to Iraq?
Well, I went to basic training in 2003, and we actually deployed for Iraq in 2005. So I actually came home, and actually I actually ended up wanting to actually go active duty, but then I had already had a commitment to the National Guard. So the active duty recruiter said, "Go ahead, finish basic training, see how you like it. If you like the military, that you want to do this full time, come and talk to me afterwards. If you didn't feel like okay, I can deal with this 1 weekend out of month, 2 weeks out of year, we'll go ahead and you just continue to do guard." So after I came back from basic training, I liked it, and I went and talked to the recruiter. And during the time of me waiting the 6 months for my doing my contract, I ended up getting deployed. We ended up getting activated. So I prayed
And that was
for
with the National Guard
yeah,
company, correct, Melvin?
yes,
Okay.
that was with the Mississippi National Guard.
Okay.
So I ended up getting what I wanted, active duty, but I didn't get it actually with the
Right. Yeah.
guy got it. So that was in 2005 when we actually got the call. I mean, 2004, end of 2004, going into 2005 when we actually deployed.
Talk to us about your tour of duty in Iraq, Melvin.
Day to day operation was pretty much convoy mission, prison patrol, a lot of times outside of the wire. My brother actually was deployed with me as well, and he
Really?
and I, yes, he and I was my mom's only children. So I often
Oh my
tell
gosh.
individuals it's a little tougher when you deploy with the National Guard versus active duty Army, and I say that for the simple fact of you could be deploying with the deacon in your church, your high school football coach,
For
on
sure.
things of that nature like that. So it affects you when things happen when you knew that person your whole life. So that was the duties that we had. And based off of some of the leadership skills that I displayed, I actually was promoted to a field grade. I had a field grade promotion of a corporal while I was over there. And on April the 19th, 2005, I was injured in a Humvee explosion when my vehicle hit an IED explosion, and the vehicle went up and landed on its top. So that's like a event that I'll forever remember.
Absolutely. Melvin, what do you remember about the days and weeks after the accident?
Really, just trying to find out really what was going on, how severe was my injuries, would I stay in Iraq or would I go home? I ended up going on with the mission that day, and everyone else in the Humvee, they went on and medevac them out. Once I got back to my fob, I realized some injuries were more severe than we first thought they were. So I
Right.
medevaced out and going to Germany, and from Germany to Andrews Air Force Base, and then down to Fort Gordon, Georgia.
So again, just to kind of recap too here, Melvin. So you were National Guard. Talk to us because we hear a lot about it on the active duty side when a soldier is injured and medevaced out, what happens. So talk to us about being a National Guard soldier by the time you got back in the States. What was your number one, what was your recovery like? What was it like, going through these hospitals as a guardsman?
Well, my thing was as a guardsman, once we got those orders, we had the same rights and privileges of any active duty personnel. We were doing the same thing that they were doing. The only incident that happened while serving as a quote unquote guardsman on those orders and was, I think, when I was going through med hold at Fort Gordon, I had this high-ranking officer made some National Guard joke, and had to tell him, all due respect, sir, they didn't have active duty or National Guard IEDs or active duty
For sure.
bullets over there. We all were serving the same fight.
Yeah.
So I never had any type of issue with that. But and that even leads even for with me actually getting medically retired. When after I was medically retired due to the orders that I was on, I have the same ID card as a active duty retiree, and I have the same rights and privileges and the benefits as one.
Thank you for talking to us about that, Melvin. Once you were back in the States, what would happen from there?
Just a lot of rehab. When I actually did get to the point of med board where they was like, well, we can't do anything for you anymore. We're gonna have to just you're gonna have to take everything else up with the VA. It was kind of devastating with me because all I wanted to do was actually be a soldier, and I wanted to just
Right.
I thought that was gonna be my life. So once I actually left Fort Gordon and headed back to Mississippi, it was a lot of dark days and a lot of
Yeah.
dark nights as for really not knowing what I wanted to do. But I had a lot of support from family members and other fellow guardsmen, and I had actually had a friend that came to me. Let me step back before I actually started. Before I got the job working with youth, that was one of my first jobs when I first came back, and I enjoyed it because I was able to tell them my story. I actually went through a residential treatment program for PTSD in Nashville, Tennessee. So I wanted to find out why was I feeling the way that I was feeling, what was actually
Right.
going on. So after talking with the individuals at the VA, they suggested that I go through this program. And during that time, that was 2006, and I was one of two Operation Iraqi freedom veterans that were there. The rest of the veterans were Vietnam veterans. So I enjoyed that time because I always liked being around older people, hearing the stories and everything. I had a lot of the Vietnam veterans kind of just put their arms around me and was more so like, man, I've been dealing with this 20 years. I've been dealing with this 30 years. And just telling me their road to recovery and just telling me a lot of things that they dealt with and told me I would, in so many words, you need to go ahead and try to nip this in the bud and
Yeah.
um, find out what's going on now. Don't wait like we did until you're old. So I understood where they were coming from, and I took heed to it.
What types of things would you take and kind of implement in your life after talking with those Vietnam veterans, Melvin?
Um, the fact of the matter of knowing your triggers, knowing what resources out there that might help you, which ones that, and I know even working with the Department of Veteran Affairs now, I know that every treatment is not the same for everyone. What may
Right.
work for this individual might not work for the next. So it's really just them telling their story. It wasn't really kind of like, even with me being a peer support specialist now, I can tell an individual my story, but at the same time, they still have to walk their own path. So it wasn't really anything specific. It was just more so just being a listening ear and just telling me that I wasn't alone.
Yeah, that's extremely valuable to a person. Melvin, you would eventually go back to school. Talk to us about that time in your life.
Yes, when I first came home, I actually did enroll into junior college, and then just um, going back, being there with a lot of people who were younger than me. Some were my age, but my mindset was just different because of I was probably the first time I was like 2 years removed from the military, and it just didn't work out. So I ended up leaving and just went into the work field. But in 2017, I actually made the decision to go back to school, and I wanted to go back for criminal justice with a concentration in emergency management because I still wanted that need, felt that need for some action, and I wanted to just do more. So that's what I ended up doing. But along that line of going back to school, I kind of found myself still wanting to be in the helping field. So I ended up still continue to stay in mental health and just tell my story. But I think going back to school was still a significant part of my story because I can encourage veterans to utilize that GI Bill and don't just leave that money on the table. And I learned a lot, and I've developed a lot from the experiences that I had at school.
Melvin, what would you tell to any veterans listening that, they might not have used that GI Bill yet or education benefits that they have, coming their way? Maybe they feel like it's just been too many years since they've been out of school and they can't do it anymore. What do you tell veterans listening, Melvin?
Well, by all means, the GI Bill has evolved a lot since I first went to school. As far as you can use it for vocational training, you can use it for non-traditional schools. So you have a lot of individuals that say, "Well, college is not for me." Well, that might be true. College might not be for you, but you can also use it for other programs for IT certifications and things of that nature as well. So I would say search and look for whatever program that you feel that will develop you and give you the skills that you need to go to that next level and utilize that GI Bill. And if an individual falls in the situation where they can give it to their spouse, give it to your spouse.
Right. Yep. Thank you for touching on that, Melvin. Talk to us a little bit about how you would initially get your foot in the door at the VA to start working there.
So initially, I was going over to the Tuscaloosa VA to um, see my doctors over there, and then they introduced me to vocational rehab. So when I was talking to an individual in vocational rehab, I told him that I was currently working, but he kind of persuaded me to apply for a position in EMS, EMS being housekeeping. And I was like, well, I'm not sure, but I'm like, housekeeping was making more than what I was doing. But even though I was at the group home, I wasn't doing that per se for the money. It was just really giving back. But he was stating a lot of things that I can do within the Department of Veteran Affairs. So I ended up applying for a position within housekeeping, and I ended up getting it with no problem, of course, and ended up doing that for like 6 months. And actually, while having that job, a incident happened on one of the acute psych units, and I had to therapeutically confine a disruptive veteran. And after that situation, of course, we made sure he was good and everything. And he, once everything came played out, he came back to me a couple of weeks ago and just shook my hand and said he'll appreciate how I handled the situation. And other individuals at the hospital, nurse managers, saw what I did, and they came to me and asked me would I like to become a nursing assistant. And so I told them I don't have a nursing background or anything like that. I was field artillery when I was in the military. I didn't have any kind of medical background. They were like, no, don't worry about it. We'll get you trained. And actually, when I actually went back to get that training, I used my vocational rehab. I forgot what chapter it is with the VA to actually go back and get that certification before I even touched my GI Bill. So ended up doing that, and from there went and got another position in RRTP. And when I got engaged to my wife, she was actually an active duty, active guard in Jackson, Mississippi, and I ended up transferring to the VA in Jackson, Mississippi, and worked there for a little while in their RRTP program, and then I transferred to Tennessee in 2013.
So, talk to us today, Melvin, about what you do at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Well, currently, what I do is I'm a certified peer support specialist within the PCMHI clinic. PCMHI standing for Primary Care Integrative Clinic. So what I do day to day is I get referrals from doctors or other individuals around the VA, and I reach out to veterans and just talk with them and give them resources and just encourage them. It could be a veteran that's 18 years old that just recently got out of Fort Campbell, or it can be an 85-year-old veteran who no one really calls and check in on them, just want to talk to someone. So the conversation could be literally related to how many points did LeBron to a you did you watch Bonanza or Andy Griffith last night, and which I do all of that. So I consider myself well rounded. So that's the beautiful thing about just communication and just um, talking with other people. Of course, that veteran component actually opens the door for us to have a even playing playing ground just to try to start talking. But we start talking about so much more. So I enjoy what I do. And like I said, prior to this call, we actually was doing a group. So.
That's absolutely tremendous, everything that you're doing, Melvin. And, first of all, thank you so very much for your service to our great country. And thank you again for the continued service you continue to do in your own community and to give back to the veteran community. I want to ask you a little bit about that more, because something that's been kind of a common theme here is you continuing to serve, right? Whether in uniform or out. Melvin, what would you say has been the driving force to keep you all these years committed to serving your brothers and sisters?
Man, honestly, it's I often say it's healing in service.
Yeah.
With us starting the nonprofit, I got with a group of other veterans. Actually, in 2019, we did a ruck march, 22-mile ruck march for one of the fallen soldiers, Travis Cooper, who we served with over in Iraq. And after that, I think it was last year when we actually made it official and said we wanted to actually try to start a veteran organization. It's called Operation Continued Service. And our motto is remembering those who have fallen and supporting those who still stand. So with that, we do memorial rucks and we do recovery rucks, and we also do veteran coffee social within community, and we work within Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama.
For anyone wanting more information on Operation Continue Service, how can they get that information, Melvin?
They can find it on our website. It's www.operationcontinuedservice.com, and also we're on social media on Facebook and on Instagram.
Thank you, Melvin. I want to swing back a second here to the work you do as a peer support specialist. And one of the groups that you work with is homeless veterans. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
In the past, when I was a peer support specialist in 2017 to 2019, I worked within the homeless program. Within the homeless program, you have a lot of areas. You have individuals who are street homeless, and you have veterans that are actually in what we call the hood vash or either grant per diem. The hood vash homes are low income, and based off the income for the veteran, they can get vouchers, and the VA will partner with the Department of Housing and Urban Development and house those veterans. While the veterans is within hood vash, they have a case manager that follows them. What we did as peer support was we were that extra support for that veteran if they needed any help as far as filling out applications, if they needed to go to food pantries or anything like that, we will assist them. Also, up under that umbrella, we also went inside of the prisons and we talked with veterans, and we encouraged them, especially veterans that were close to being released. The VJO would actually go in there and we would assist them, the veteran justice outreach person. And also with under that umbrella of with the VJO, we will actually attend veteran treatment court as well. The veteran treatment court or for diversionary courts that's pretty much for veterans, and a lot of those veterans are suffering from PTSD and probably alcohol related crimes, well charges, or either domestic violence, things of that nature. So I truly enjoyed what I did with the homeless veteran, because, like I said, you can have somebody that's literally street homeless, and whether you're getting them something to eat or either you're trying to find resources to get them housing for that night,
Right.
whether it's at the rescue mission or whether it's with one of the other halfway homes.
Melvin, if there are any veterans listening that are struggling with homelessness, what are some kind of immediate resources that can be accessed for them?
I would tell them the first resource I would say would be contact your local VA.
Okay. Thank you, Melvin. So you mentioned earlier in the show, and we kind of blew past it at the time, but you have a wife that's also active military. Would you talk to us a little bit about your wife and what it's like being a military spouse when you yourself are a combat veteran?
Oh yes, my wife Shalonda, she just recently, well, I think it was like July, she came back from a deployment in Kosovo. So she was over there. I want to say about 6 to 9 months. I can't remember exactly, but during her deployment, I had to be the stay-at-home dad and take care of my toddler, which was a joy, and I didn't have any problem with it. But I never had been on that end of the spectrum of being a military spouse. But it was my honor to serve back on the home front while she actually was over in Kosovo. Um, so just to have that dual relationship, to someone knows um, and have experienced the same thing that you experience, is a great thing, and it's an honorable thing.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And we thank your wife for her service to our great nation also. Melvin, talk to us a little bit about how you first learned about Catch a Lift.
So I think it was another veteran that I was talking to, and he was telling me about this great organization that will give you gym equipment or either pay for you a gym membership. And I was like, man, that sounds good because me, especially working with veterans, any resources that's out there, I like to try to get them so I can have them in my toolbox so I can refer other individuals. So I found out about Catch a Lift and I went online. It was a pretty seamless process and just put in the information. And I was like, okay, I don't really want to go to the gym. I really like to try to have something here at home. And so I chose the elliptical. And so they contacted me, and then they said, "Well, Mr. Gatewood, we're gonna send you the elliptical, and even if you can't put it together, we're gonna have somebody to put it together for you." And I really appreciated that. So they did that and gave me a whole welcoming package, and I still have my shirt from when they originally sent it to me. So and for them doing that, I most definitely enjoy. I was honored to be able to receive the elliptical. But the one thing about Catch a Lift that really stuck out to me was um, last year. Well, we're in 2020 now, so in 2020, we're in 2022 now, and I'm sure y'all to edit that. In 2020, I was going through a rough time. My uncle, he was in the hospital, and the gentleman just called me. It was a strange number, and I normally don't even answer. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. But the gentleman just called, and he just was like, "Hey, man, I'm calling to Catch a Lift just to check on you." I said, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just calling just to check on you, just see how everything going." And he sat up there and had a long conversation with me, just asking me how everything was going, and just saying like he was really concerned about what was going on with me. And I just told him about my uncle, and I think during that time my uncle had passed, and I ended up getting a card from Catch a Lift in the mail, and that just really stood out for me. And then when you all incorporated the coaching program, and then as far as the coaching corner, it's times when I'm on my break, I just go on YouTube and I watch it. And it's a very inspiring story. And I was saying, well, I have a story to tell as well. So I said, let me reach out. So just reached out, and I just wanted to be part of all the things that you all are doing, and just putting some positive vibe out there in the atmosphere.
Absolutely. And, I'm so glad that we were able to get to you during that time in 2020 when you were having a difficult time. And that was one of our veteran outreach volunteers that called you. It's something, we're extremely proud of Catch a Lift. We have a very dedicated group of nationwide volunteers that call all of our veteran members, to check in on them and, let them know that someone really does care about them. And then likewise, we follow up with the veteran on the Catch Lift headquarters end, if there's something in particular they need or some way we can better assist them. But it's a tremendous piece of the Catch Lift program. And so kind of, let me ask you this as a follow-up, Melvin. What does it mean to you to know that you are a part of the Catch Lift family and that we will always be here to aid you in your, your recovery, your wellness journey, your fitness journey?
I think that is awesome because even as I age, I feel that other program, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's some low impact things that I get into, Catch a Lift will always be there. And just the simple fact that going back to what you were saying about the volunteer, I think that even you have a large group of individuals that didn't serve, that don't have a connection with the military, but they have this opportunity to call service members, because I think that the gentleman got as much out of the conversation that I did. So Catch a Lift is a great organization.
Absolutely. And, you said it earlier in the call too, talking about, being a peer specialist and like there's so much healing that you get out of doing that, right? And the same thing, like talking about vet outreach, right? And there's something so valuable and so healing for both parties when you can just have a conversation with somebody. It's something we don't have that anymore, right? The world is becoming more and more distant, and it's hard to just have conversations with people. So it's absolutely phenomenal, Melvin, what you're doing and how you continue to serve our community. What has it meant to you and your family, Melvin, to have that home equipment at your house and you don't need to be going out to a gym or, messing around somewhere else?
It's been great because I'll tell you the truth, my mom, my mother-in-law, when they come by, they jump on it.
That's awesome.
It's just trying to keep the toddler out there, but It's been great because even going back to when I was actually actively looking at different law enforcement agencies. It was I had to get physically fit as far as for different stamina tests that I had to do. And during that point in time, I was not doing a lot of running. So having that elliptical here, I actually was able to drop a lot of weight and was able to increase my mobility to actually, and I actually did pass that the last physical that I had for the Custom and Border Patrol. So that was a good thing.
Heck yeah, that's outstanding to hear, Melvin. Good for you. I have one last question for you today, Melvin. What does it mean to you to be a catch a lift veteran athlete?
Man, it means a lot. It means that I have the support of individuals like you. I have the support of weekly looking at the coaches corner is the tons of emails and correspondence that I get from you all. So like you said, it's like a family. So I never feel like I'm alone. And if I feel like I get to the point that I want to get into like kettlebells or anything like that, I can always reach out to you all, and I know that you are
Absolutely.
right there.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for reaching out to us, Melvin. I'm so very honored to talk to you today and, have the opportunity to be a part of telling your story. It's absolutely tremendous. So thank you again for sharing your light with us all.
Most, most definitely. And thank you for all that you do for our nation's hero.
Thank you, Melvin. That's it for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. We will return next Wednesday at 1 Eastern Time with another episode. Thank you again, Melvin, for sharing your story and your light with us all. It was absolutely terrific. Thank you to ID Technologies for your support of this Coach's Corner podcast. Thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for all the work that you do to make this podcast possible week after week. And we thank the entire Catch a Lift team. Don't forget to join us Wednesdays live at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for a chance to win Cal swag and a chance to chat with your brothers and sisters. Until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.